I'd really love to just explore that idea of trusting yourself more. I know in the work that I've done with women around the world, you know, this concept of trusting ourselves. And it's easy to say, trust yourself. And I say it to people all the time, but it's not always as easy to do.
Yeah.
So when you think about, you know, what does it mean to trust yourself? You know, what does that mean for you?
Yeah. Well, you begin to realise, particularly when you're so young, that, you know, you have to... you are it. This is life. This isn't a practice run. This is it. This is where you're going. You're not going to come back sometime and do this better again. This is it. So you have to rely on your own resource. And if you can't trust yourself, who can you trust? Really? I mean, you know, no one is going to look after you any better than yourself. So it's important that you do that for yourself. And I think as a parent, you also learn that you have to be able to look after yourself so you can look after your children. So I don't know what it is. I think a lot of people don't trust themselves, which is a bit of a scary thought, really.
And I think some of that is, and I think particularly we women, and I know there's lots of research that shows this, we underestimate ourselves and how capable we are.
Yeah.
So to me, a lot of self-trust is trusting that you can handle a lot more than you think. And I think if we could trust ourselves that, you know, we can handle, we're bigger than any problem that comes at us, that whatever obstacles we face, whatever roadblocks we come up against, you know, you can figure it out. You've got all the resources inside you to figure it out, like you did at 18 in a strange city with a child to look after. You know, you figured it out one day at a time. You figured it out when you came up against things. And I often, you know, a question I love to ask people is, what would you do if you absolutely could trust yourself, if you really backed yourself that whatever happened, whatever obstacles you came against, you could handle it. You could figure things out, you know, what would open up for you. And I think for you, obviously, your story is one of continually just backing yourself, getting out there, figuring out if there's a roadblock, how do I figure out, you know, how do I get around it? But that's opened up so many possibilities and what you've accomplished in your career and life for you.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a message that women need to hear more often.
Yeah.
You can handle more than you think.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you don't, you know, what have you got to lose?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
If you don't, if you weigh out the options, what do you have to lose? But more importantly, what do you have to win? And if you don't put yourself out there, you know, what are the opportunities you're missing out on? One of the things I learned at a very young age is to make the most of every opportunity. And some of the people who work with me always, you know, that's if you ask them what's the biggest motto I would give them is don't waste any opportunities, because once it's gone, it's gone. So forget about what you're going to lose. Is what will you miss out on winning?
Yeah.
You know, that's the important thing to think about. So yeah, you do. It's amazing if you put yourself out there. And you know, it's not. I mean, it's all very easy to say, and everyone has their own doubts, and you question yourself, and you have this talk in your head about, can I really do this? Am I able to do that? Everyone has that. I do that. We all do that. But it's about actually parking that and understanding that, you know, everyone is in the same boat. No one's actually really thinking about you the way you think about you. You might think they are.
They're too busy thinking about themselves.
Of course they are, you know, and you realise that as well. That, you know, life isn't about, you think, oh, what's this person think about me, or what does that corporation think about what I'm doing? But in reality, they haven't got 100% focus on you. You have, so you make the most of it. And when you come to that realisation, it's such an interesting thing, because you realise that person isn't really just focusing on what you're doing and why you're doing it and how you're doing it, and really, you know, intense in caring about what you're doing. Only you can do that. Yeah. So I do think women do need to trust themselves, and they do need to put themselves out there. I look back on the country town where I grew up, and some of the women that are there now that are my age and who married the local boy and did whatever. And I know when I see them, they just look at me and they go, wow, how did you do that? And I think, why didn't I do that? And
you just put yourself out there again and again.
Yeah.
And I think there is a ripple effect. And you talk about, you know, people at your work and making the most of every opportunity. You've got to seize the moment, because those opportunities can come and then they can go. But I think, you know, when you get an opportunity to meet someone or just to introduce yourself to someone and make that connection, those connections, there's such a ripple effect. You meet one person, you chat to them, that person then connects you to someone else and you chat, and your world gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But you never know unless you put yourself out there and, as you said, park your doubt. Just park the doubt and just go for it.
Absolutely, yeah. And I know when I had a role at one of the roles I had at Telstra, I had some most amazing roles there. was industry marketing manager for the hospitality, travel and tourism industry. And I was working for Telstra, but my role was to go and work with that industry and understand it, and then bring that information back into Telstra so Telstra could develop better products and services for the industry. But I used to go to these tourism events, hospitality tourism conferences, and I'd be the person there by myself and had nothing to do with the industry. And these people were like, who is that person? What is she doing here? And I would just go and start talking to people, and then they'd introduce me to somebody else, and then they were very curious, and I was very curious. And before I knew it, I was meeting with the CEO of the Australian Tourist Commission and senior people at the airlines, and I'd be getting invited to their conferences, and then I ended up having a one-on-one meeting with the Federal Minister for Tourism, and that would never have happened if I hadn't actually
showed up.
Just showed up.
Yep.
And it was uncomfortable. It was uneasy. It's not, wow, this all happens and it just, it's all laid out. I mean, I had doubt and I wasn't sure about what I was doing, but I just did it anyway. And, when you push through it and then these things happen, you think, well, that wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
It wasn't that hard, and it was uncomfortable.
Yeah. But I think that's such a great point, that when we push through it and we show up and we do it, and it can be a bit uncomfortable at first, you realise it wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
And the things that make you uncomfortable starting out later on don't make you uncomfortable, and you become more and more at ease with situations that were once intimidating.
That's right.
Or scary, or and I think that's just it. The more you do that, the more you put yourself out there, the more you get outside your comfort zone, then the more you expand, I call it our courage zone, the more you expand that place where you can do more things. You just become more confident in yourself, but you've got to put yourself out there to begin with.
That's right, you do. And I think about, there's lots of different stories, but I think about I started out and I didn't, where I grew up, you didn't sort of go out and do speaking opportunities, but now I'm doing lots of different speaking opportunities. And one event I got to speak at was Richard Branson was speaking at it as well, and I spoke earlier, and then he arrived, and I was on the head table, and there was 900 people in the room. And it just so happened that the MC was sitting next to me, and they got up. And so Richard Branson sat next to me, and he was talking to me, and there was 900 or 899 people in that room that wanted to be sitting where I was sitting. Yeah. And it just happened. I mean, we had a very interesting conversation with Richard, and everyone else was trying to speak to him. But people go, how did you make that happen? I didn't purposely go out and do that. But by being there and getting involved and going and speaking at this event, these things happen.
Yep.
And that's it. You have to actually take those steps and do it. And the people you meet, the things that you learn, the more you know, the more you realise you don't know, and the more you realise there's so many different things you can actually be involved in by just doing it. So it's I don't want to take away, I don't want to sort of portray that this is it's been an easy, but it's not hard either.
Well, I mean, what you've done in my mind is you've done just countless, a zillion little things that have been courageous. You've just continually, day after day, been a bit bold, been a bit courageous. You've gone outside your comfort zone. Maybe not huge some days. It's like, you wouldn't even think twice about it. But you've done that continually, and over the course of 25, 30 years, you end up in this, with all this whole big world of people that you sit with and connect with, and whether it's Richard Branson or the many other people that you meet, that, and people go from the country go, wow, how'd you do that? Well, you just did it, like one step out of your comfort zone at a time, and seizing opportunities as they came along, and over time there's that real ripple effect.